Welcome to the Enneagram 2.0 podcast. I'm Beatrice Chestnut.
And I'm Uranio Paes.
And today we're talking to Clay Schultz, and we're going to be learning about the growth path of a type 9, and more specifically, a self-preservation 9. So welcome, Clay.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you both.
I'm delighted to have you also. And during retreats that you participated, everybody likes you. So I'm pretty sure that our listeners will like you too.
Oh, thank you for that. Although I
Yeah,
have to be careful because people pleasing is, something I need to watch out for.
yeah. Well, I can imagine as you get even more grumpy and ornery, as you become less likable in your growth path as a 9, that people like you even more. I know that when we last saw you at a recent retreat, I was really, really impressed by just how completely awake you seemed, really, really a sign of a 9, especially a self-preservation 9 on a growth path. You just seemed very enlivened and awake and present, and it was great to be around you.
Thank you for reflecting that back.
Clay, first things first, how did you come across with the Enneagram? How did you find out your type and then your subtype?
And maybe a little bit about you and your background and how you came to the Enneagram.
Yeah, happy to share that. So I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with my wife and our 4 boys, ages 9 to 14. So it's very lively in our house most times. How I came to the Enneagram, it was probably the better part of 10 years ago. And I was, as Richard Rohr says, kind of if the train is on schedule, that kind of hitting that midlife moment. And that was showing up at work, it was showing up in relationships. And we were new parents at the time as well. And I would say, a big part of it was, as a good 9, I merged. My wife, who is a type 7, was interested in the Enneagram. And, I think I probably came to it a bit like, a little fear of missing out. There were conversations happening that I wasn't feeling a part of. And I could tell there was something there that was for me. And so really came to it through that. I took an online assessment. I don't remember which one it was, but I think in a very sort of classic way, I ranked as I could be a 3, I could be a 6, I could be a 9. And fortunately, we had a good friend who was familiar with the assessment who said that's actually very typical of the results if you're a 9, because we often see many perspectives. We can see ourselves in different in the expression of different types. So yeah, I would say I was pretty clear I was a 9 from the beginning. I thought I could be a 1 potentially, and I think that was a bit of self-pres, kind of the structure and the order of self-pres kind of mixing with the passion. But there was a panel of actually men 9s that I listened to, and I had so much resonance with their stories around feeling very busy, but not busy doing the right things. And I think that was what really helped me understand, the passion of sloth initially was that, we 9s can look quite busy. We can look like we're doing all the things and attending all the right meetings and taking care of everyone around us. But it's that sort of self-forgetting, or that sort of deep desire to maybe not want to be affected by life,
Mm-hmm.
that I really resonated with.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And what are kind of the first growth steps you took as you learned you were a 9 and learned more about the Enneagram?
Yeah, I think I hadn't realized just how disconnected I was from my body. I think learning about the Enneagram and learning that we 9s are in the body triad, I thought I was pretty well in touch with my body, but I wasn't at all. I almost think it was like the way that a type 5, we talk about sometimes the head can be disconnected from the body. I think in that way, my soul, in a way, was disconnected from my body. So I uh, immediately started working out. And then I realized that where I was working out was, I was probably going to injure myself because as you both probably remember, I was about 40 pounds heavier than I am today. Um, but I really had to, I think, get in touch with like how my body had somaticized a lot of repressed emotions, desires, goals, fears. So much of that I think was just sitting in my body.
Mhm.
And I would say, despite having attended, gone to therapy with, for quite some time before discovering the Enneagram, I don't think I really got anywhere very quickly. And so I started working with an Enneagram based therapist, uh, another healer who uses the Enneagram, and just tried to start making a list. And it seemed like as my physical health came online, I was able to also like work on mental health and start to uncover things that had just been sort of laying dormant for a long, long time.
Hmm. And sounds like maybe dormant because of sloth, because you weren't really paying attention to yourself, what you needed, what you were carrying that, wasn't so good for you.
Yes, exactly right. I came to realize that I sort of had this invisible bag over my shoulder that, it, anytime something unpleasant would happen, maybe there was supposed to be conflict between me and another person. Instead of putting it out in the space between us, I would just put it in that bag.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then, you know, something else unpleasant happens, whether that's, self-forgetting, it goes in the bag, and it just kind of accumulates over time. And that bag can't hold everything. And so one of the things that I was finding was I needed ways to empty that bag in a healthy way, because usually what would happen is it would break open in inopportune times with the wrong people, whether it's my wife or my kids. And I was uh, truly not dealing with stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think that's exactly right. I went back to, I've always struggled with the term sloth in terms of the passion name. And one of the things that I learned was that before it was called sloth, I think in Latin it's acedia,
Yep.
which is, I think, translates roughly to without care, or sort of this notion of wanting to be, like I said before, unaffected by life.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that unpleasantness, I would just try to stuff down into that bag, or store it somewhere into my body. And I needed ways to bring that up to the surface and deal with it.
Hmm. Right. Like staying comfortable through not dealing with things and throwing them in the bag.
Exactly. Yes. And that took the form of a lot of different things. I mean, we nines are very good at narcotizing, I would say. And
Hmm.
so for me, it was avoiding discomfort through food.
Hmm.
It was avoiding discomfort through, kind of those inessential tasks, or things like crossword puzzles. I loved to do crossword puzzles. I think that might have been in your book, B, where
Hmm.
that was one of the things that I really landed for me, that, oh, wow, I'm really spending a lot of time doing things that aren't improving myself, aren't improving the world. And, I could rationalize it in a way like, I just need a break. I need some downtime or whatever. But when I look back on those days, it really was avoidance of discomfort.
Hmm.
And I would say, I found the theology of Saint Ignatius of Loyola,
Hmm.
his notion of acting against, that we have many forces within ourselves and within the world of um, feeling like I'm, the direction of travel is going this way, but really I need to go the opposite way. It's,
Mm,
I'm not always my best friend, in terms of like what my patterns are in terms of taking care of myself or taking care of the things that really need to be taken care of in my family, in my
mm.
home, and things like that.
Yeah, I knew one self-preservation nine, and the way she described it is I get lost in comfort so I don't have to show up for life. I like the way she put that. Like show up kind of to potentially be vulnerable, to potentially do something uncomfortable, to take care of business, to bring myself to the world in a way.
Yes, 100%. I did a somatics nutrition course, and that was really helpful for me to understand like how my state of nervous system, because I think self-pres really is linked to the nervous system.
Mhm,
I believe that quite deeply, and understanding using food as a means of regulation, or using food as a means for, frankly, secure connection
mhm,
and secure attachment. And it wasn't until doing that that I realized I was using food and other things for the purposes that they weren't intended to, where I was seeking more of a emotional or spiritual satiation, but I was using, physical food to try to achieve those ends. So yes, I agree with the statement of not showing up for life because it's easier to stay numb.
mhm,
Yeah, and so I've been on a path over the last probably 4 years now of trying to peel back those agents that I was using for numbing,
mhm,
and it started with alcohol.
mhm,
I never really thought I had an issue with alcohol, because I have people in my life who are in 12-step programs and identify as having addiction. But I do think, despite the fact that I wasn't necessarily in a 12-step program, I was using alcohol to numb out, just the noise of life. I think we nines, um, find ourselves trying to both tamp down the outside world as
mhm,
well as the inside world, and we're kind of stuck in the middle of these two, and we look for things to help us turn down the volume of that. So this peeling back of the numbing agents, it started with alcohol.
mhm,
um, then it moved to being able to reduce and ultimately get off an SSRI for depression and anxiety.
mm.
Then it went to caffeine,
Wow.
and then it went to food. And so that's what I'm currently working on. I think it's going well. As I've mentioned, I feel like I've learned a lot about why I'm doing some of the things that I'm doing.
Mhm,
Uh, but then I wonder, what's the next chapter? There are
mhm,
currently things that I haven't yet seen that I'm using to numb, uh, and I just don't know what they are yet.
mhm. Well, that sounds like a really good list, and I love how you're looking at each one and asking that question of like, how is this helping me numb out, so I'm not fully alive and present. And also, what you talked about starting to work out. It sounds like that's also a big piece, and losing all that weight. It's almost like you've really tried to empty that bag. You've really tried to sort of bring yourself forward and say, how am I avoiding life? And work on things one at a time in terms of getting rid of this stuff that you hit, numbed out with or lost yourself in so that you weren't really showing up.
Yeah, I love your descriptions of nine, the passion of type 9, sloth, and also many things related to self preservation. Nine, I love all of them, and your ways out. I want to say that sometimes, especially self preservation nines, we see that they transform their bodies into a container of unprocessed things. and they hold stuff in the inside, and it's very important to gain weight because of that, or to have, you know, a sound, you know, body presence somehow. But you also mentioned how you found out you were not really in touch with the body, and nines push energy outside, like the attention and energy go to external demands of all kinds, not only from people, by the way. Do you think that has to do with the disconnection from the body, like losing energy, um, because it went outside?
Yeah, I think so. I I think I personally have a very sort of diffuse lens on the world, and so I I think I've heard that from other nines as well, that we're able to see so much, and I, that's a gift, no doubt. But I think there is a shadow to that, which is that oftentimes we forget about the one perspective, which is our own. And
Mhm.
and I do remember learning about the virtue of right action, that oftentimes right action is on behalf of oneself. There
Yeah.
are times when I have needed to step up and do something on behalf of someone else, but I I think there was, for me personally, a lot of grieving that needed to happen about self abandonment and about self forgetting, that I have gone so far in life without truly taking my own perspective, that I'm just sort of in this pattern of reacting to what is needed from me. And I think it has served me well in work and in family life, that I think nines can be very dependable. They can, I'm viewed as a team player, and there is a cost to that. And I think, as you say, Uranio, one of the things that has needed to happen has been, to be a bit selfish, for lack of a better word, with my energy, with my resources, to truly focus on myself. And it can feel very unnatural. And uh, you know, I feel like I've heard you say this before, both of you, that as a nine, when you really start to step into identifying what you need and going after it, it's not easy, and it's probably going to piss some people off too.
Mhm. Yeah.
And yet, um, that's what needs to be done, because I came to the realization that nobody's going to do this stuff on behalf of me.
Mhm.
It's up to me.
Yeah.
And that has reframed how I think about my body. It has reframed how I think about my life, that there, you know, I have the keys to the car.
Mhm.
And it's up to me, to live the kind of life that I want to live. And that might appear selfish. Yeah.
And it's a good thing for nines if you're selfish, a little bit selfish. And I think that you not only talked about the passion of sloth, you're now talking also about the fixation of indolence that we explained in other podcast episodes here. Well done, good job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. That's another word that I struggle with translating that for people, but I do think it's, again, I'm a fan of etymology, but it's basically it's a similar thing to not wanting to be affected by life. Am I right on that?
Yes, you are, and not wanting to take your position in life and being the leader and being there for yourself, speaking on your behalf. In indolence, people put themselves second or third or even last, but also they don't become the initiators of important changes. Yeah. Now, for self-press 9 especially, there is a big role in getting rid of daily comforts. How did you notice this for yourself?
Oh, yes. Uh, I I had it explained to me once, the three subtypes of the nine all merge with something other than themselves. And I didn't quite I couldn't see at first that the type 9 self-preservation subtype merges with routine.
Mhm.
And I think it's this deep need for predictability, stability, back to, sort of not wanting to be affected by life in those terms. And so we create routines. And I think there is a gift in that. I think it helps our kids. I'm very stable, I'm very predictable in terms of what their experience is of me. um, but I did have to start to examine, how do I spend my time?
Mhm.
And you know am I doing the same thing at the same time every day?
Mhm.
And I kind of started to just journal on this, or not dream journal, but rather kind of take observational notes. And it was like, okay, I'm waking up at the same time, I'm getting ready in the same way every morning, I'm going to the same workplace every day.
Mhm.
When I open my computer, I check the same three websites in the same order. And once you start looking for it, you can really spot it everywhere. So I would say there has been an intentional amount of uh, embracing spontaneity
Mhm.
that I can actually recall a therapist telling me I needed to do that exact thing. That um, life is going to show up on life's terms, and if you're too stuck in routines and habits and rituals, you're going to miss it. And I'm finding too, the more open I am to like what needs to emerge in this moment, whether it's a conversation with a coworker, or one of my kids who's really needing to talk about some a painful moment that they're in. The more I can respond to life like that, and really just drop into what is needed of me right now, I'm finding I'm living a much more like well-rounded life, I would say. The analogy I like to tell people in terms of the instincts is, it's like a soundboard that needs to be balanced. I was over indexing on self press, and that was taking up all the bandwidth for other instincts that needed to be balanced out. And we can't go through life living one third of it. We need to have all three. And I find that the more I can try to deconstruct those routines,
Mhm.
the more that gives oxygen to those other elements of life.
Right. So good, Clay. And similarly, we need to have all three centers of intelligence, not only being a body type for you. So, how did you do the development of the heart center and the head center? What have you been doing about this in particular?
Yeah, I didn't do it very well to start, I will say. you know, uh, I was using the body to try to solve problems of the heart,
Mhm.
or using the body to try to solve uh, problems of the head. And I'll give you a couple examples. So, it, at work, if there are new demands, or there's an increased output that's needed, I, you know, as a body type, my kind of default response is, well, I'll just work harder. I will do more. I will put in more hours, or I will, um, yeah, just spend more time doing the activity of work, versus needing to potentially step back from something and either come up with a more creative solution using the head center,
Mhm.
or or perhaps using the heart center in relational intelligence by tapping into other people on the team who might potentially be able to help. And that I would say like that has been the work, is trying to identify what kind of issue am I dealing with, and and what is the right way to address that. So it can be hard as a body type for me to just sit with the discomfort of a child who's in pain.
Mm.
Um, we recently had a son diagnosed with type 1 diabetes,
Mm.
and there's an initial uh, period of just you're trying to learn as much as you can, and you really start to understand that I can do everything perfectly and it's still not going to go smoothly 100% of the time.
Mhm.
And so I started to shift to how can I support my son in less physical ways and really be there for him emotionally.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I find myself being impressed with all the things you've worked on and all the things you've done, partly because two things. One is I think, each type has a different growth path, and some go from like going for pleasure. And I think the self-preservation 9 growth path means moving away from pleasure, from the point of view of losing yourself in comfortable activities or routines. And it's a little bit like pushing yourself into discomfort. And I think when you have 4 kids, that there's a lot of demands on you, in addition to just the way that nines put their attention outside them and try to create harmony in the environment. There's things that you are having to respond to that I can imagine aren't always easy. And so it sounds like you're using those things as a way of waking up and stretching yourself.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I would say there's also an acceptance of what season of life I'm in. You know,
Mhm.
I do a lot in the local Enneagram community, and I would say generally you're seeing people who are in a later stage of life, and I kind of understand that that's normal because people have more time. However, I would really encourage people that, especially nines or self-pres nines, that don't wait too long,
Mm.
because yes, it you might be in a season where you can't prioritize things as you might like, but yes, there are opportunities for personal work. You can get away. You can ask for help, which is hard, I think, for a body type like me. That there's sort of a Superman mentality of I should be able to get all this done by myself and not need to rely on others. But look at that as an opportunity to open the heart.
Mhm. Beautiful.
People are in your life; they want to help, and yeah,
Yeah, what a great hint for
Beautiful.
our Type 9 listeners. And so many things that you have mentioned have to do with awareness and, understanding patterns, but then also choosing differently. And not only choosing differently in theory, but going for it as soon as possible. And this requires energy and will, and it's not always easy for nines to find it. How was it in the beginning of your process, and how is it today? What have you learned about the how to do this good things?
yeah. I think for me initially there was a feeling of overwhelm. I felt like I had a list of deferred items, and so I really tried to give myself the space and the grace, really, to
Mhm.
be able to start working on things. And I'm very fortunate to be married to a woman who also takes her inner work very seriously. So I do strongly believe that inner work is a team sport. So whether it has been for me, I have actually a group of 9 men that I meet with very regularly.
Wow.
We they all met actually at our lake cabin not too long ago, and we called it the Peace Summit, which is it was great. Uh, so drawing support from them, from other men's groups, from my wife, I would say you need cheerleaders in this if you're going to be doing this work, especially if you're a 9. You need people who will hold you accountable, and you need to also be able to develop the skill of self accountability as well.
Hmm.
But what I did find is as I was able to increase my window of tolerance of discomfort,
Hmm.
then you're able to, you realize you survived. I woke up an hour earlier for this week and I worked out and suddenly the weekend comes and I survived. uh, and then I'm finding now the stronger I get physically, emotionally, mentally, the more I kind of want to go after stuff. So there's been, I would say, a feedback loop of I survived. Now I'm going to try to tap into a little bit of healthy 3 energy, perhaps, and move the goalposts a little bit and try to do a little bit more and try to do a little bit more. And, if you try to do 1% more over time, it can really create a remarkable difference in your life. So I think the energy has been coming from all of those areas. Physically, I feel healthier. I feel like I do have more energy. Um, but I also feel like aligning with your purpose is
Hmm.
also highly energizing. So just like showing up to a job or um, a relationship that you aren't sort of drawing that emotional satiation from, those sap your energy. And so as a 9, I feel like it's really important for me to really think hard about what it is that I want, and then once I get it, it's like it really happens.
Mhm. Beautiful. That must feel amazing. Like when you've leaned into the discomfort and done the work it takes to get up an hour earlier or whatever it might be. I mean, do you really notice a shift in your energy and your way of being?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, even little things like I notice that I drive faster. Not too much faster, but I've noticed like just the way I move, um, I'm moving towards things as opposed to just sort of being more on that kind of autopilot. So um, it is extremely energizing, and frankly, it's sort of self-surprising as well. Like that, I've recently set a goal for myself that I'm going to run my first marathon next year,
Wow.
and I've started to. I've never identified as a runner. I don't. That it's not something that has, when I've tried it in the past, has ever brought me any joy. Um, but now I'm finding the more and I should say too, this is aligned to a charity that I'm very sort of deeply invested in their mission. So I'm finding that if I can find those things that really have meaning for me on a very personal level, whether that's for just for me individually or for those that I care deeply about, it's remarkable how much energy I can have around something that I'm really believing in the purpose and the mission of.
Mhm.
Mm. So good, Clay, so good. By the way, what's the charity in case people are impressed with you and want to donate to the charity?
Yes, that would be amazing. It's called Breakthrough T1D. They they're the leading charity in the type 1 diabetes space. So I
Oh,
mentioned we have a son who has type 1 diabetes,
yeah.
and I also have a dad who has type 1 diabetes. So
Mhm.
they
Right.
raise money to fund research toward cures as well as advocacy. So
Beautiful.
yeah, perhaps we can put in the show notes a link to my
Yeah.
donation page.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. And Clay, one thing that I want to ask you is, well, among all 27 subtypes, we sometimes say that self-present nines are the most prone to being stubborn and all that passive aggression. And you said that you did this amazing step of asking friends on the path, including your wife, to hold yourself accountable. So usually when people say something to the self-present nine, the self-present nine sinks in and becomes like reactive, and all nines really don't like being told stuff. How do you deal with this impulse when that happens?
Yes. How do I deal with that? Yeah, you should probably ask, people in my life too how I deal with it. But I would say, part of it has been trying not to be that, sort of stick in the mud that I did not appreciate my stubbornness until, some people had started gently reflecting that back to me. I I did not appreciate how much control I seek, even though it's in, I think, more indirect ways, in trying to, not necessarily manipulate situations, but not not really stating what I need and sort of using more what I would call relational guerrilla warfare tactics. So I think it has started with trying to manage reactivity. So if someone brings me an idea, I immediately ask for some time, because one thing that I was finding I was doing was either saying yes or no immediately and not actually pausing to look inside, because there were situations where I would actually resist something that ultimately I felt I regretted I resisted, because it ended up being something that I really enjoyed. So there was like definitely the power of maybe, and I need some time, was incredibly helpful for me. Now I have to be careful, because maybe can turn into I don't get back to you. And so I do really try to, hold myself accountable in when I ask for time to get back to people in a reasonable amount of time. And I'm getting much better at just saying no. There's a wonderful book that I would recommend to any kind of recovering people pleasers called Not Nice. And it is all about being able to confidently speak your truth. So a good example is like we were invited in a couple weekends by some dear friends of ours, and it just wasn't going to work out schedule wise to meet with them. And so that is an example of something that probably would have given me a lot of heartburn before. And to be able to say, this is an incredible offer. Thank you so much. Your, friendship is very dear to me, but unfortunately it's not going to work this time around. And I'm finding the more I can say no, the more I can have a good boundary around things that frankly I'm just maybe not interested in. Uh, it becomes much easier. It's like a muscle that hasn't been, it's sort of atrophied or hasn't been used forever. The more I can say no, um, not in a resistant way, not in an automatic way, but rather in a thoughtful, aligned to my own values way, then it's much easier to be accepting, I find, of things that really do align to what I would like to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the more you can say no, the more room there is for the clarity around what you want to say yes to.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, and there's something wonderful about feeling in choice, where I feel like I personally can often feel like the world is happening to me, and
Mm-hmm.
so I need to have that sort of barrier up, and that I think that is what has led to that stubbornness, is that I want to keep the world at bay, and that means just shutting everything down immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I kind of open that barrier and I get thoughtful about what I want to let in, the easier it becomes, and the more I think flexible and receptive I become to life happening all around me.
Hmm. Beautiful. And the tricky thing for some nines, and especially self-preservation nines, is that you're known what people like you for your adaptability and how easygoing you are. And yet the growth path is being less adaptable and less easygoing, in service of you instead of everyone else being happy with your how easygoing you are.
Yes, I mean, I would say, family of origin, that was exactly the role that I played. In fact, that is the word my dad would use to describe me, was that, I had a older brother who, I wouldn't say sought out conflict. I believe him to be a type 8,
Mm.
though.
Mhm.
And I sort of saw how that went for him. And I think in some ways my sort of 9 pattern was a bit of a reaction to that. And really, I do think we as parents can confuse adaptability, or kind of being a team player with an actual shutting down of desire, a shutting down of what's important to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think there was some grief that needed to be processed around that for me personally.
Mhm.
That it's weird. I am me, but the way I am in my body, the way I connect to my deep desire is it's just something that's coming online now. It feels like, as an adult,
Mhm.
and that, as you say, might create conflict.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how are you with conflict now? I mean,
I would. We're all works in progress, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
I would say that I've gotten much better about, uh, especially in my like personal relationships, taking that conflict that I described that was sort of stored inside of me,
Mhm.
and putting it back into the space, and trying to hold it neutrally. I think many nines can feel like anger is very messy.
Mhm.
We're not good at it. Um, and I I think for me it was a sense of anger is either, you're totally asleep to it, or you go 100 miles per hour,
Mm,
and
mhm,
not being able to find that level of anger that the situation called for.
mhm,
So the more I can tap into, and I will be honest, it sometimes takes me 2 days or 3 days or longer to really figure out that I am angry about something.
mm,
It might start as frustration or irritation. I might give it a different name. And then
mhm,
when I get down to, once I've had some time to really process, I'll say, no, I'm angry.
mm,
And
mm.
and then, okay, that's step one. Now what am I going to do about it? you know, it's,
Yeah.
I think even getting there can be difficult sometimes. Being able to really zone in and identify what it is,
Mhm,
this emotion. Then, I think it is about being able to put something back in the space. This is something, and I'll usually try to do it from the perspective of like taking my own, um, sort of putting myself under my own arm and saying like, this is what I need, as
mhm,
opposed to, this is, you did something wrong, or,
mm,
you know, you are bad, this was a bad thing, something like that. It's more like, I need this, and coming with more of a heart forward, uh, statement like that, that hopefully then gives us something constructive to work off of if there is conflict.
yeah, yeah, like you're saying, putting yourself in the picture and listening to your needs and wants and seeing that as equally important to what someone else might want.
And doing something about it. Uh, yeah, so yes, such beautiful path you're in, and so many great hints for nines who are listening. Would you Do you think you can share some hints for people who relate with type nines in their lives?
Mm. We nines can move very slowly, so I would say be gentle with us. As I
Be
mentioned
patient.
before, yeah, my wife came to the Enneagram sooner than I did, and I would say in a lot of ways she kind of slow played me, if you want to think of it in those terms, like a poker hand. But I would tell people who are in relationship with nine, back to your comment about stubbornness, Uranio, is that we we don't mean to be stubborn. We don't mean to be resistant. It's just a defense mechanism that we've developed to keep ourselves safe over time. So the more, I think, indirect you can be in some ways, uh, the better. We need time to acclimate to new ideas, and so keep bringing things in front of us that may or may not seem, it might take the fifth or sixth or seventh try to get us to come around, if you think it's truly in our best interest. Um, so be patient. The other thing that I would say, a very deep need for nines is connection. And I think it's hard to describe exactly, but there is a disconnection can feel a bit like annihilation. If there's conflict, or if there's some kind of rupture in a relationship, that can feel extremely hard. So we have a son who's a nine. We think he's a nine. We're holding that typing lightly, but we think he's a nine. And his need to just be on the couch, actually physically touching, is very strong.
Mm.
And I think even as an adult, we nines need that too. We need somebody to be a little bit shoulder to shoulder with us, and knowing that connection is strong and knowing that it's lasting is really, really powerful for a nine.
Mm. Beautiful. Yeah, and I can imagine if you need to, you know, talk about something that's uncomfortable or have a little bit of a conflict, I can imagine reassuring the nine about that connection and that it's going to be okay, and that talking about something where you disagree won't harm that connection. It can even make it better.
Yeah. Yes, I think that was a huge learning for me personally, and I don't think it's the kind of thing that you can teach, but it has to be experienced. Is that conflict is generative, and that we I mean, I think for the type nine, the hint is right in the name peacemaker. That I, in a earlier stage, was very good at keeping the peace. I was not very good at making peace. And I think a big part of making peace is that you do need to lean into conflict. There are times when people are expecting you to be angry, and you need to do things that either cut off a relationship, or transform a relationship, or frankly, perhaps be angry with yourself that you've forgotten yourself. There are times when we need to create some conflict in service of peace.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I love the distinction. I've never really heard that before or thought about it that way, between the peacekeeper and the peacemaker. And how the peacekeeper is someone who is not saying what they want and just adapting too much and staying comfortable or staying out of it or not engaging deeply, and the peacemaker, as you're saying, is someone who creates peace out of whatever's happening, which may sometimes lead through conflict in order to get to a better place of peace, because everybody's put their opinions out on the table, said what they want, and there's a process to help everyone be heard and get somewhere new. So I love that description. And I also admire a lot, we know your wife, that you we've seen both of you change enormously over time, and so it's really exciting to see people in relationship really doing this work, and sometimes, one person's doing it more than the other, but it really seems like you're both so engaged in your own growth process that it's very inspiring.
Yeah, I find personally the more I can work on myself, especially as a 9, that I am far easier to be in relationship with.
Yes.
It's like, I've taken off a lot of that sort of smooth edging, shell that was there, and I've got now more to for people to grip onto. And what I'm finding is that that's not necessarily for everybody, and that's okay. That,
Yeah.
but I don't think I appreciated how hard it was to be in relationship with me when I didn't give people anything to grip onto, whether
Mm.
that's opinions or beliefs, or even things, traits and preferences. When we don't give people anything to grip onto, it's a point of disconnection, which of course we 9s fear more than anything sometimes.
Yeah, and it's about being there for yourself and in your body. Otherwise, that can't happen.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, and I do think having a partner in life that who is doing their work is, it's an incredible thing that I benefit from, not just as like the accountability that I'm talking about, but it's a really beautiful thing to also witness. That
Yeah.
is it. Watching a human transform is incredibly powerful.
Mm.
And I'm imagining there's a lot of listeners who either want to get into your type 9 men's group or want their partner to get into your type 9 men's group. That sounds
Yeah, we don't really have a formal application process, but we welcome all. If you are a 9, if you love a 9, we welcome you. So.
okay. You may be getting some requests. So, is there anything else that we haven't asked about that you want to share about type 9, the self preservation 9, or the growth path?
I think we covered it all, but I would love to close with just a message of gratitude for both of you. You've been incredible teachers on my path, and I consider you both dear friends. And I want to thank you both for having been with me in some tough times, as well as helping me celebrate the good times. So yeah, just deep gratitude for you both.
Mm, thank you, and gratitude back to you. It's been such a joy just to know you and know who you are, and also to see you on your incredible path and how much you've transformed and become even more of the great person you are.
Thank
Yeah,
you for that.
it's really lovely to see you, and thank you for your words. And carry on, keep going. There are no limits. Mm.
Thank you.
Okay, so that does it for this episode. We hope you join us again next time for the Enneagram 2.0 podcast, where we talk about all things Enneagram.